With the holidays coming up, some people are in the spirit of giving.
But there is a group of panhandlers targeting some areas who may not be as needy as you think.
Now, these people stand at shopping malls with small children, holding signs asking for money.
Right now in America, more than 1.5 million laid-off workers are sleeping in places nobody should ever call home. RVs, old minivans, grocery store parking lots, and even abandoned highway exits. These aren't drifters or wanderers. They're parents, nurses, truck drivers, warehouse workers, people who had jobs, homes, and stability just months ago. But as layoffs explode and rents climb into the stratosphere, millions are discovering the brutal truth. In today's America, one lost paycheck can send you straight into the streets. America faces an unprecedented crisis, massive job losses happening alongside skyrocketing housing costs. Since 2024, economic trackers estimate 1.5 million workers lost their positions. Tech giants like Amazon, Google, and Meta cut tens of thousands of employees. Major retailers including Walmart, Macy's, Kohl's, and Best Buy closed stores and trimmed staff. The trucking industry saw thousands of company shutdowns as freight demand collapsed. Meanwhile, housing costs continue climbing. Average U.S. rent now sits between $1,800 and $2,100 monthly. Cities like San Diego, Denver, and Seattle push single-bedroom apartments to $2,500 to $3,000, with vacancy rates getting tighter. When households lose income, rent becomes impossible. Experts estimate one missed paycheck puts half of American renters at immediate eviction risk. Over 60% of households live one paycheck from homelessness. Today's layoffs don't create inconvenience. They trigger immediate crisis within 30 to 60 days. When jobs vanish, shelter vanishes. Wage growth slowed to 3 to 4%, while housing jumped 6 to 12%, creating an impossible gap. Americans now face a brutal choice: homelessness or alternative shelter. This explains why RVs, cars, and parking lots have become housing solutions. Traditional shelter has become mathematically unattainable for millions of working families who suddenly lost income in an economy where basic survival requires more money than most Americans earn. This isn't a single industry recession. Every major economic sector is cutting jobs simultaneously, creating a devastating chain reaction. Tech layoffs dominate headlines, with tens of thousands eliminated from Meta, Salesforce, Microsoft, Stripe, and Google since 2024. But the real danger lies in sectors regular Americans depend on. Retail saw over 3,000 stores announce closures across Walgreens, CVS, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree, Target, Rite Aid, and former Bed Bath & Beyond locations. Manufacturing slowed automotive and appliance production, eliminating tens of thousands more in 2025. Freight experienced catastrophic collapse. Over 40 major trucking companies shut down, forcing 20,000 to 40,000 drivers into unemployment. Healthcare facilities facing financial pressure laid off nurses, support staff, and specialists. Construction slowed as mortgage rates climbed to 7 to 8%, halting projects and cutting jobs. There's no soft landing because essential costs remain sky high. Average households need $74,000 yearly just to survive, while median wages sit around $59,000. With each falling domino, retail, freight, tech, manufacturing, available jobs shrink. Laid-off workers aren't bouncing into new positions like 2019 or 2021. Instead, millions fall off the map entirely. They're pushed into RVs, vans, SUVs, and parking lots because the economy no longer accommodates them. The job market contracted while living costs exploded, creating perfect conditions for mass displacement into vehicle dwelling. Buying an RV traditionally meant vacation and retirement. In 2026, it transformed into America's emergency shelter system, unofficial, unrecognized, and completely unprepared. Used RV sales exploded during the pandemic. By 2023, approximately 11 million households owned RVs. Today, these vehicles serve a different purpose: emergency housing for families locked out of rental markets. More alarming is car dwelling. Estimates suggest 500,000 Toronto. 700,000 people sleep in sedans, SUVs, vans, and pickup trucks. Cars are easier to acquire than trailers. The change appears everywhere. Parking lots filled with overnight residents, parents using gym memberships for showers, workers heating food with camp stoves outside vehicles, RV camps overflowing and turning desperate families away. RVs and cars now represent the last stop before street homelessness, but they carry real costs. Used travel trailers need propane, insurance, fuel, and repairs. A broken alternator or blown tire can eliminate shelter overnight. Without intervention, America creates a mobile homeless class. Not by choice, but by economic force. RVs and parking lots became cheaper and more accessible than rent, revealing a housing system that failed millions. This isn't lifestyle choice or adventure. It's survival strategy for families priced out of traditional housing who still need shelter. The transformation from recreation vehicle to permanent residence shows how desperate America's housing crisis has become for ordinary working families. America's most shocking trend: overnight vehicle villages behind big box stores. Walmart, Cracker Barrel, Cabela's, and Bass Pro Shop traditionally welcomed RV travelers for overnight parking. Now they've become unofficial homeless shelters. Why there? They're safe, well-lit, patrolled, and free. Many stores allow one-night parking, but desperate families stretch that definition, staying 3 days, a week, sometimes longer. Walk behind a Walmart at 2 a.m. and witness families with kids doing homework inside minivans, camp stoves heating soup beside car doors, RVs with solar panels taped to roofs, older workers living alone because retirement savings vanished. This isn't localized. States seeing the most parking lot living include California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, Florida, Colorado, and Washington. Food insecurity connects directly. Many stores report record theft spikes, not from crime rings, but from hungry families trying to eat. For millions forced from housing, parking lots become final refuge, places to sleep without harassment, rent, or eviction notices. But as more locations ban overnight stays due to rising safety concerns, families have fewer legal places to exist, pushing them deeper into danger. Parking lot living reveals systemic failure. These spaces weren't designed for residential use, yet they're functioning as America's largest unregulated shelter network. The corporate parking lot became housing infrastructure by accident, filling gaps government and markets left wide open for displaced working families seeking anywhere safe to sleep. RV parks used to beg travelers for reservations. Not anymore. Many regions show RV parks operating at nearly 100% occupancy with record waitlists. The reason? Millions using RV parks as long-term housing, not vacation destinations. But parks weren't designed for permanent residents. To manage surging demand, many implemented strict limits, 7-day maximum stays, 30-day turnover rules, no monthly rentals, proof of income requirements, no older RVs allowed. Some parks require background checks, turning away families with old evictions or credit issues. The result? Thousands pushed out with nowhere else to go. Average monthly RV pad rental jumped from $450 to $900 or more. Popular areas, Florida, Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Texas, now price out the very people needing them most. When campgrounds fill, families turn to rest areas, forest land, casino parking, abandoned lots, and highway shoulders. This pipeline, layoffs, eviction, RV park, rejection, parking lots, became the new American housing map. Every campground tightening rules forces more people into less safe, more exposed living conditions. The campground crisis reveals another layer. Even alternative housing options are collapsing under demand. RV parks can't absorb displacement from traditional housing markets. Parks designed for weekend, travelers now face permanent residents they can't legally or financially support, creating another bottleneck where desperate families get rejected and pushed toward increasingly dangerous, unregulated spaces with zero services or protections. When someone loses their job today, the fallout isn't just unemployment, it's financial collapse on multiple fronts simultaneously. First comes lost paycheck. In 2025 to 2026, over 60% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency, meaning any layoff instantly becomes housing crisis. Within 30 to 60 days, missed rent triggers eviction notices. Landlords file record removals, thousands monthly. Eviction filings remain 30 to 40% above pre-pandemic averages in states like Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Nevada. But eviction doesn't just mean losing a roof. It destroys ability to find another. Single evictions stay on record for 7 years. Landlords often require 3 times monthly rent and income, clean rental history, credit scores above 650, security deposits up to $3,600. Add maxed out credit cards, rising interest rates near 28 to 33% APR for many lower income borrowers, and the picture becomes grim. This creates downward spiral. Layoff leads to unpaid bills destroy credit, destroyed credit blocks apartments, no apartment means vehicle living. Millions of Americans fall into this sequence simultaneously. By reaching RV parks or parking lots, they're not just houseless. They're financially locked out entirely, unable to qualify for traditional housing, even if they find work again. The simultaneous collapse of income, housing, and creditworthiness creates a trap with no exit. Once all three fall, recovery becomes nearly impossible under current systems designed to exclude anyone with financial disruptions on their record. One of the most misunderstood pieces of this crisis: many living in RVs and cars aren't unemployed. They're working. Researchers estimate 30 to 40% of America's vehicle dwellers have jobs, but jobs don't pay enough to rent or own homes in today's economy. Walk into a Planet Fitness at 6 a.m. and witness the quiet survival routine. People brushing teeth in bathrooms, workers showering before shifts, uniforms stuffed in gym bags, charging stations powering phones and laptops. Some workers make minimum wage, around $12 to $16 hourly, depending on state laws. That equals $1,900 to $2,600 monthly before taxes, nowhere near enough to cover rent. $1,800 to $2,500. Car payments, $400 to $700, insurance and food. Others are gig workers, DoorDash, Amazon Flex, Walmart Spark, but fluctuating demand and high fuel costs often erase profits. Then there are retail, warehouse, and healthcare aides, earning slightly more but still unable to secure stable housing due to high upfront costs and low supply. This group hides in plain sight. They're your restaurant servers, delivery drivers, casino workers, substitute teachers, people participating in the economy but shut out of housing. Their existence exposes brutal truth. Having a job in America no longer guarantees access to home. Work no longer equals shelter. The fundamental social contract broke. Full-time employment once meant basic housing access. Now it means parking lot, sleeping between shifts for hundreds of thousands of Americans still contributing labor, but receiving inadequate compensation. As more people turn to RVs and vehicles for shelter, cities respond, not with help, but with crackdowns. Over the last 3 years, over 100 cities and counties passed ordinances restricting overnight parking, vehicle dwelling, or long-term RV stays. Common new restrictions include no overnight parking anywhere within city limits, tow-away zones near schools, parks, and shopping centers, 72-hour limits on any vehicle parked in public space, $300 to $750 parking fines, police towing RVs and auctioning them as abandoned. Cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Austin expanded enforcement zones, targeting areas where vehicle residents traditionally cluster. Municipalities argue crackdowns reduce crime and sanitation issues, but reality devastates. When an RV gets towed, families lose homes, clothing, documents, and medicine in one hit. Recovery fees often exceed $1,200 to $2,500, meaning most never retrieve belongings. With parks and parking lots shrinking, families get pushed into more hidden and more dangerous areas, remote industrial zones, unlit back roads, abandoned lots, behind warehouses. By criminalizing where people sleep, cities aren't solving homelessness. They're shrinking the map of where human beings can exist. Enforcement doesn't eliminate homelessness. It disperses it into shadows. Every towed RV represents a family losing everything. Every restricted parking zone pushes vulnerable people toward locations with zero safety, services, or oversight. The crackdown approach prioritizes appearance over human welfare, creating invisible populations living in increasingly desperate conditions. There's a myth online that living in an RV is a cheap alternative to housing. But when families are forced into vehicles without savings, the opposite becomes true. RV life becomes financially brutal. Consider average base costs: RV park or campsite, $600 to $900 monthly; propane for heat and cooking, $80 to $200 monthly; fuel costs, $250 to $600 monthly; dumping freshwater and waste, $20 to $50 weekly; insurance and registration, $120 to $200 monthly. That assumes nothing breaks. One unexpected failure wipes out everything. Tire replacement, $250 to $400 each. Brake job, $600 to $900. Alternator, $800 or more. Transmission, $3,000 to $7,000, often RV ending. For many living in older RVs purchased cheaply, often 15 to 25 years old, breakdowns are common. Unlike rental apartments, there's no maintenance person to call. Even car living has costs. Gas to stay warm overnight, gym memberships to shower fast, food bills due to lack of kitchen access. While social media glamorizes #RV life with solar panels and campfires, reality for laid-off families is grim. They're spending nearly the same as rent just to survive, and one repair can push them from vehicle living onto streets. The cost myth keeps people unprepared. RV dwelling isn't cheaper, it's just different expenses with higher risk. One major breakdown eliminates shelter entirely, unlike traditional housing where broken appliances don't mean instant homelessness. Vehicle dwelling transfers all maintenance risk and costs directly onto people least able to absorb them. Perhaps the most heartbreaking trend, families forced to separate for survival. When households lose income and can't afford rent, tough decisions follow fast. Some parents send children to stay with relatives while they sleep in cars or RVs. Others split households. One adult couch surfs while the other watches the RV in parking lots. In cities like Phoenix, Las Vegas, Portland, and Houston, nonprofit shelters report requests for temporary housing for minors increased 20 to 35%, while adult shelters remain full. Even grandparents' homes are overcrowded. Estimates suggest multi-generational housing is at its highest point in modern U.S. history, with over 60 million Americans now living in combined households. Families often keep separation secret, from schools, employers, even neighbors, fearing custody loss or social services intervention. Some school districts report surging numbers of students classified as housing insecure, many doubling up or living in cars but still attending class. This fracturing isn't just emotional, it's systemic. It shows an economy where the safety net shredded so thin that parents can't keep children under the same roof. When layoffs force families to split apart to survive the month, you know a country reached its breaking point. Family separation reveals the deepest crisis layer. Economic systems aren't just failing individuals, they're breaking family units apart. Children separated from parents due to housing costs represents fundamental social breakdown, not individual failure, but collective policy catastrophe. Not everyone can bounce back from layoffs, and the crisis brutally affects older Americans and disabled workers. Workers over age 55 face the longest reemployment times in the U.S., often 6 to 12 months or more finding another job. Worse, Social Security isn't designed to catch them. Average benefit is only $1,707 monthly, far below rent needed in almost every U.S. city. Many seniors burned through savings during the pandemic era, and nearly 40% of Americans near retirement have less than $25,000 saved. Those with medical issues face impossible equations. Medication, food, and rent cannot all be paid without income. America now has fast-growing senior RV and car dwellers, especially in warm weather states like Arizona, Texas, and Florida. Many rely on food, banks, church parking lots, or $25 nightly campgrounds, which still adds up to $750 or more monthly, money they don't have. For disabled Americans, numbers are worse. SSDI average payment, $1,137 monthly. Required income for basic rental, $1,800 or more. Prescription price inflation, 12 to 18% yearly increases. Many cannot work at all, but are still priced out of traditional housing. This portion represents silent emergency. People who worked entire lives now sleep in backs of cars because the system was never designed to protect them when housing becomes luxury good rather than human necessity. Vulnerable populations face compounded disadvantage with no recovery pathway available under current support structures. America doesn't just have a housing crisis, it has a vehicle housing foreclosure crisis experts didn't see coming. During boom years of 2020 to 2022, millions financed RVs with cheap interest rates. Today, those loans became traps. Repossession filings on RVs began, rising sharply in 2024 and are now estimated up 60 to 80% nationwide, depending on region. Unlike homes, RVs depreciate instantly, many losing 30 to 50% of value in just a few years. Someone who bought a $45,000 travel trailer may now owe $38,000 on a rig worth $18,000 to $22,000, meaning they're underwater and cannot sell. If income disappears and the loan isn't paid, the bank takes the RV, which means borrowers lose shelter, belongings, transportation, and stability. Creditors sometimes still demand remaining balance, even after repossession. Even paid-off rigs aren't safe. States like California and Oregon are towing unregistered RVs parked on city streets and auctioning them. Single unpaid registration fee or expired tag can trigger a tow, and most working poor households cannot afford retrieval costs. This means thousands are being evicted twice, first from rental homes, then from the RVs that replace them. Vehicle repossession used to be financial setback. In 2026, it often means instant street homelessness. The repossession crisis reveals another trap. Even alternative shelter isn't secure. Financed RVs become debt anchors that can be seized, eliminating shelter while leaving debt behind. The foreclosure pipeline now includes vehicles serving as primary residences. A disturbing new pattern emerges across America. Micro-cities built from cars, vans, and tents, usually tucked just beyond what drivers can see. These communities grow rapidly near highway exits, industrial zones, and forest edges. Why highways? They offer access to food, access to jobs, easy relocation, and less police patrol. Estimates from local outreach groups suggest 80,000 to 120,000 people may now live in these clustered vehicle encampments, not by choice but by economic necessity. Many of these hubs function like communities: campfires for cooking, shared tools and water jugs, rotating watch shifts for safety, parents homeschooling children from phones, informal trade, and bartering systems. Cities try removing these encampments, but every sweep simply relocates people a few miles away. In some regions, encampments grow back within weeks, often larger than before. The scariest trend is expansion into rural areas where there are no shelters, no services, and no food pantries. As housing becomes unreachable and RV parks close doors, the crisis spreads outside city limits, creating a shadow America, visible only if you drive slowly down the right dirt road. These camps are warnings. A modern, wealthy nation now has thousands of hidden, unregulated villages of working people with no permanent address. The encampment phenomenon shows organized survival emerging from systemic failure. People create informal communities because formal systems abandon them. These highway villages represent America's failure to provide basic shelter, forcing citizens to build parallel survival infrastructure outside legal frameworks or government support completely. Some Americans aren't staying put. They're chasing work across the country in RVs, vans, and cars. This group includes former warehouse employees, truckers, Amazon workers, restaurant staff, and gig drivers. They travel from state to state hoping to find seasonal or temporary work: roofing in summer, holiday retail rush in winter, farm harvests in fall. But without stable housing, this nomadic lifestyle becomes financially brutal. Fuel alone can eat earnings. Average gas cost for traveling household: $400 to $800 monthly. Diesel rigs can spend $1,000 or more monthly. Temporary jobs rarely offer stability. No benefits, no paid time off, no guarantee of hours, layoffs at any moment. Even Amazon Camper Force, once a lifeline for RV users, slashed capacity and wages, leaving many stranded after driving hundreds of miles. Every state change also means new challenges: insurance rate increases, vehicle inspection fees, new overnight parking laws, unknown tow and homelessness enforcement. This mobile workforce represents a new American class, people still working but unable to plant roots anywhere due to rising costs and unstable wages. As more cities ban vehicle dwelling and job competition intensifies, thousands may soon find there's nowhere left to go. The nomadic workforce exposes labor market failure. Workers must chase temporary jobs across entire states while absorbing all relocation costs with no stability or benefits. Economic necessity created modern migrant workers, not agricultural laborers crossing borders, but American citizens crossing state lines seeking any work that might cover basic survival costs for another few weeks. Living in a vehicle may offer shelter, but it offers very little safety, especially for women, disabled individuals, and single parents. Police records and community reports show increases in break-ins targeting RVs and vans, theft of catalytic converters, batteries, propane tanks, assaults at night, predatory behavior toward women alone. Families living in parking lots are exposed at all times. Unlike apartments, there are no locks between danger and sleeping space beyond thin doors or metal skin. Many RV owners must rotate locations every night to avoid being targeted. Some sleep with knives, pepper spray, or makeshift alarms, while others stay awake in shifts. Kids growing up in these environments face extreme stress. School counselors in multiple states report rising numbers of students with PTSD-like symptoms: lack of sleep, Development delays linked to instability. For women especially, danger is staggering. Advocacy groups estimate 1 in 4 vehicle-housed women experience harassment or threats, and many avoid shelters for fear of assault there too. This crisis isn't only about economics. It's about safety, survival, and dignity. Once housing disappears, people don't just lose walls and roofs, they lose privacy, protection, and the right to feel safe in their own lives. The safety crisis reveals housing's protective function beyond basic shelter. Walls provide security, privacy, and defensive space. Vehicle dwelling eliminates these protections, leaving vulnerable populations exposed to predation, theft, and violence with minimal recourse. Women and children face amplified danger in environments where personal security depends entirely on constant vigilance without structural protection. The most frightening aspect of this crisis isn't where we are, it's where we're heading. For the first time in modern history, America appears to be normalizing vehicle homelessness. With 1.5 million or more layoffs, soaring housing costs, and shrinking safety nets, the pipeline is predictable. Layoff leads to eviction, eviction to vehicle, vehicle to street, street to disappearance from official statistics. Federal homelessness counts show all-time highs, but experts warn real numbers may be double because people in cars often aren't tracked. Meanwhile, housing construction lags by 3 to 5 million units, and wages still trail inflation. If nothing changes, no mass housing build, no living wage reform, no enforcement relief, the number of people living in vehicles could surpass 2 million within 2 years. Unlike past downturns, this crisis isn't temporary. It's structural. Jobs are more unstable. Housing is more expensive. Credit is harder to rebuild. America silently creates a nomadic survival class, families, workers, retirees, all without homes, rooted only to the parking spot they can find before dark. This isn't fringe issue anymore. It's a warning sign of a nation under strain, where everyday people fall through cracks, and the ground beneath them gets thinner every month. The normalization represents systemic acceptance of failure. When vehicle homelessness becomes expected rather than shocking, society stopped demanding solutions. The crisis transitions from emergency to permanent condition, with millions trapped in survival mode while policymakers treat displacement as inevitable rather than solvable. Because at the end of the day, nobody is coming to fix this unless we talk about it. Click the next video to see how cracking down on RV homelessness is actually making the problem worse. Drop a comment below. Have you seen RV or vehicle camps growing where you live? And before you leave, subscribe, because this story isn't ending, and neither are we.